Okay, today we're moving on to lesson 5.9. We're talking about parallel lines and transversals, something we've talked about a little bit before, and using angle relationships to help us find missing measures. So our goal today is listed here. We should explore relationships between angles and find missing angle measures using reasoning. So again, we won't actually be measuring most of the time today, but we're going to be using reasoning based on what we already know. So looking now at page number 194, I'm going to zoom on in. We're going to go ahead and look up here starting at number 1. These are some things we reviewed already, but we do need to talk about this, make sure that we have a good grasp on it. So we are supposed to write the measures of the angles indicated for these numbers 1 through 6 at the beginning without using a protractor, which means we need to look at some angle relationships. So looking at number 1, we need to find the measure of angle A, and what I'm going to use to help me is the fact that I know this is a straight angle, and I know that two angles together that add up to a straight angle are called supplementary. Supplementary angles always add up to 180 degrees. So to figure this out, I'm going to go 180 minus the 60 that I already know, which is right here, and I should get 120 degrees, which would be my answer for number 1. This is one of our simpler problems. We will move on to things a little bit more difficult, and I'm going to erase some of that so that we don't have to look at that, but I'll just keep going for now. So now we're going to try to figure out the measure of angle X, Y, and Z. So I want to start off with this, but I want you to finish it. You're going to finish this whole page on your own. When we look at this angle over here, I have a straight angle or a straight line and another straight angle or another straight line. So when I have two straight lines that intersect, I'm going to have something cool that happens. I'm going to be able to look and see that opposite angles or vertical angles will have the same measure. And we already pointed out that we do have some straight lines here, which will help us. So let's start with angle X. If I'm trying to figure out the measure of angle X, I'm going to go ahead and look at this straight angle. And again, I can see that 135 plus my angle X should add up to 180. So my missing angle there is 45 degrees. 180 minus 135 is 45, so I get 45 degrees. Figuring out angle Y is even simpler. When I'm trying to figure out angle Y, and I'm going to erase so I can point this out to you, when I'm trying to figure out angle Y, I can see that I already know the opposite angle, the vertical angle of that. Those two are congruent, so that means that angle Y is also going to be 135 degrees. And that leaves me with angle Z, which again, now I do see that I have an opposite angle for that. We already figured out X, determined what that is. So angle Z will also be 45 degrees. You are going to continue on this page, working on it on your own, using what you know. The rest are a little bit more challenging, so you will want to look. You'll need to know how many degrees are in a quadrilateral, which is 360. You'll need to be using these straight angles and figuring out how many degrees are in a triangle as well to help you. Again, with a quadrilateral down on number 6. Up back at number 3, you're looking at a straight angle, also a 90-degree angle, using all of that information that you know to figure out what your missing angles are. All right, now we just hopped over to page number 195. So you should be here as well. And looking at these, now we have something different. Now we're looking at parallel lines and angle measures. So it says, without using a protractor, find the degree measure of each angle in problems 1 through 6 below. Write the measure inside the angle. Then circle the figures in which two of the lines appear to be parallel. We're actually going to go do that first. So figuring out which ones are parallel, I want to do this first because I do think some people maybe would forget about this direction. We're going to go ahead and do that right now. Number 1, to figure out if they're parallel, remember they have to be absolutely straight across from each other so that those lines will never meet. So number 1 we do have a set of parallel lines. Number 2, they're pretty close, but I can see that this one is tilting a little bit. Those are not parallel, so we are not going to be circling that one. Number 3, my vertical lines are parallel, so you should circle number 3. Number 4, if we scoot down, if we scoot down and look at number 4, those, again, they're just a little bit tilted, so those are not parallel. Number 5, they are really tilted, so those are not parallel. Number 6, they look kind of off, but if I do highlight these, I can see that those are definitely parallel. So you should have those 3 problems circled. Now, just because the other ones aren't parallel doesn't mean that we can't solve them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do numbers 1 and 2 with you, and then you're going to try to solve the rest on your own. So we'll zoom in a little bit closer to number 1. In number 1, we have our 2 parallel lines, and then we have this other straight line that's intersecting them. And that line that intersects is called a transversal. Some of you, I've talked to you about this. Not everyone has talked as much about it. But what a transversal does is it makes, again, some cool angle relationships, some things that are easy for us to see. So we are supposed to figure out the missing angle measures, and as you can see, we don't have a space to write them anywhere. So we're going to write it right by the letter. So looking at, let's start with angle B, which is right here. I'm going to use this fact that I have a straight angle here to figure out my supplementary. So figuring out that 70 plus that angle B adds up to 180 means that angle B is 110 degrees. And you might notice something now. If you look down here, this angle is also 110 degrees. And this is what's cool about a transversal and parallel lines, that my line up here on top, I'm going to have the same angle measures that I have down here because of that special line called a transversal. So right now, as I figure out some more, I can figure out kind of 2 at a time. Now we also know about vertical angles. I'm going to use a different color for us for vertical angles. So if I look at, let's say, angle C and this angle, which is 70 degrees, I know that C will also be 70 degrees. And if angle C is 70 degrees, angle G, which is congruent because of the transversal, will also be 70 degrees. And we can go so on and so forth. Now we know about vertical angles, angles that are across from each other. So angle D will be 110 degrees, and angle H will be 110 degrees. And that leaves us with just one left, angle E over here hanging out by itself. And if I look at the relationship up top, I see 70. I can also use what I know about vertical angles and opposite angles to see that angle E will measure 70 degrees. So you'll use that reasoning to help you solve numbers 3 and 6 as well, because we also have parallel lines. Number 2, we're going to be doing things just a little bit differently. So number 2, we do have enough information to solve it. And what we need to do is go ahead and look again at our straight angles to help us. So I have a straight angle here. We're going to start with angle I. We know that these 2 are supplementary, meaning they should add up to 180 degrees. So if I do my math, 180 minus 83 gives us angle I with a measure of 97 degrees. And if you look on this page, you can use your calculator for the rest of these. So go ahead and take that out if you want to check your work. Now again, I'm going to use some angle relationships here to help me. I can't go down here and look because these lines aren't parallel. So angle M will not be 70 degrees. That only works if they're parallel. But I can look at my opposite angles like this. So angle K will be 97 degrees. And I can look at my opposite angles here. 83 means angle L will also be 83 degrees. So we've solved for our top. Now looking at our bottom, this one, hopefully we're picking up on this already. If I have a 90-degree angle here, what is going to happen to the rest of my angles? They are all going to be 90 degrees. Because that shows me that these lines are intersecting to make a perpendicular angle here, which means all of them have to be perpendicular. So now with number 2, you'll use that reasoning to help you solve 4 and 5. And then if you look down at the bottom, it's asking you a question about transversals. I do want you to try this, so make sure that you go back and do number 7 as well. All right, this page is also part of your assignment, page 197. I'm not going to be going over any of this with you. I do want you to try this on your own. These are things that we've done and that we do need to review. So what you should be doing when you get here, looking at these methods just to help remind you, okay, how am I going to solve this? And then going down, reading carefully what you need to do. And again, you can use your calculator. So as you're solving number 1, go ahead, take out your calculator right away and look carefully. Each of these, they're giving you different information. So this one, it's saying sales tax. Over here, sales tax as well. Then it's changing to ask you about a tip if you're leaving a tip, and then going back to sales tax again. But different information that's being given, and then you have to use all of that to figure out the total price.